listening to the Savvy Musician Show with Leah McHenry, and this is your secret weapon for success in the new music industry.
Welcome once again to the Savvy Musician Show. This is CJ Ortiz, and I am the branding and mindset coach at the Savvy Musician Academy. So thrilled once again to be joined with Her Eminence, Leah McHenry. How are you?
Good, thanks. I'm getting used to that eminence thing. Yeah.
The Queen, the Admiral, all the things I said in the last episode. You're in charge. She's basically in charge of SMA. When we say SMA, that means the Savvy Musician Academy. You know, we do tend to throw around some things. We can't assume that everybody knows.
That's true. Exactly
what we're talking about. So we're going to make it a point, ladies and gentlemen, to try and explain these things and not use only the insider lingo. But episode 54, thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're going to talk about growing your music business with less stress by not doing all yourself, everything yourself. Now, we're going to have to break this down because there's a lot to it, and Leah will explain a whole lot more about what that means. But I want to start just, Leah, again, with a student spotlight. These are pretty awesome, all the great testimonies that we get inside some of the both paid and free group. Today's student spotlight is Rob Halford. I can't say his name without immediately thinking of Rob Halford, the singer of Judas Priest. But Rob Halford, who also has a, I don't know if it's an English accent or he's from Australia, but anyway, he writes a win, #win. He says, "This is officially bonkers. The first ad only went live last night, 12 hours ago, still very much in its learning phase, but coming in at 8 cents per like. OMG, this bleeping rocks." Now, Leah, the ad he's talking about is a likes ad. And he goes on, he says, "This has been achieved directly as a result of the teaching in this course. Hats off to Melissa for her patience and attention, to Megan, these are some other coaches in the group, for her guidance, enthusiasm. Of course, to Leah for setting all this up in the first place to help us make the greatest success of our talents." Now, of course, he says here, I'm going to mention this one, even though it's bad to brag about yourself. He says, top prize today goes to CJ because I helped him get that particular one down. Students were struggling to get the cost of advertisement, in this case was a page likes ad, down. And so for somebody to come right off the bat in these early phases with a page likes ad that inexpensive is pretty amazing. So he's right to be saying OMG, but the part that I like about it is where he acknowledged that he had the help of this, A, this course, and then B, the multiplicity of coaches and counsel. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a counsel of sorts, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a wisdom in that. There's wisdom in counsel. That's one of the great things about that elite program, Leah, is just all the information that not just that you get initially in the program itself, but the other coaches. And I enjoy listening to what the other coaches have to say because they're all experts in their particular area, whether it's Facebook advertising, websites, and what have you. And of course, people like Melissa and Megan who take a more administrative role in things, so huge with keeping this machine running. And you don't realize, all the people that are involved in this. So it's very, very thankful to read that. So that was pretty great. So
good job, Rob.
Good for Rob, and he'll have continued success. But again, today, Leah, we're talking about growing your music business with less stress by not doing it all yourself. I get the feeling this came out of your personal experience.
Yes, it did. You know, I've come a long way at this point in my music business. I have a full-time virtual assistant, and I also have a full-time customer support person on my music business side of things, not Savvy Musician Academy. But it took me a long time to get there to where I am now, where that's even necessary. And so I want to talk about that, a little bit about delegation, contracting certain things out. When should you do those sort of things? And, how much should you take on yourself? There's so much we could talk about actually on this.
Well, take us back then to the beginning for you. What were some of the problems that you initially experienced when you were trying to do it all?
Well, when you start doing everything yourself, when you're doing it all, obviously, not everybody has 8 to 12 hours a day to dedicate to that. And I certainly didn't, especially getting started, having my own music business and then homeschooling the kids and single income household for a very long time. And it was me doing it all myself. And there's actually some benefits to doing that when you're first starting out. And I think that there are in a lot of cases, it's actually quite necessary for you to learn the important lessons that you need to learn in order to even know when it is time to delegate. Is this person doing a good job? What are the things that I'm good at? What are the things I'm definitely not good at? So those are all things I had to figure out, but I was doing everything myself, aside from like my album covers. I was doing, all the administration side of things. So everything from the distribution, uploading everything, fan emails, sorting through all of that. Of course, there's all the songwriting and the music side itself. I don't do any of my own mixing or mastering, so I'm hiring that sort of thing out. Just organizing, project management to, logistics of like paying session players. There's just so many different aspects, legal, administrative, creative. Man, there's just a lot. There's a lot to learn.
Now, the reality, though, is that someone starting out can only farm out, as they say, so many things. What can they do? Because they're just getting started out, just like you. But if you had to do it over again, how would you approach it differently?
I think I actually did a pretty good job the way I went about things. If it's a matter of like budget, like you can only delegate so many things. Actually, first I want to address, I think there's a couple different kinds of people. There's people that never delegate anything because they think nobody can do it better than them. And then there's people who want to delegate everything because they don't want the responsibility. They don't want to think about it at all. And so there's issues with both of those scenarios. People who think that nobody can do it better than them, that's just not the truth. There are other people who can do it far better than you. Let's just take out the songwriting part of it. You're the music creator. Let's take that out of the equation. Only you can create your music. But even then, you get a producer and they get a hold of it and, that's the spit and polish. They make it something better than it even was. I'm experiencing that right now with the stuff I'm doing. So yes, I'm composing all the music. I'm putting together a lot of the arrangements, but then I hand it to my producer and I get it back a few days later, a week later, and it's like night and day different. So he improved on what I did. So even then, I can't say that I could do what he did better. I can't. But the essence of the song is coming from me. So on the one hand, people who have a hard time passing anything off, they have a hard time delegating anything, you are going to hit a ceiling very quickly because not only do you have the time constraints, but you have skill constraints as well. You can't be an amazing top-notch musician who's like, your vocal skills are on par where they need to be, your musicianship, your live show, all of this, and be an expert at, graphics, graphic design, and be an expert massage therapist and like 5 other things. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't do it all good all the time. Like you're going to be mediocre, very mediocre. I promise you at most of the stuff you're doing. So I think the first important thing if I was starting over is identify the things that I definitely shouldn't be doing. So for me, I should not be doing graphic design. I shouldn't be designing my own artwork. And unless you have a background in that, you went to school for it, or you have like a really, really good grasp on it, you should not be doing your own graphics. We can all tell you did your own graphics. They look really bad. I'll just tell you that. I'll be the bad cop for you. They look horrible and you should not do your own graphics. That would be the first thing I would farm out and find somebody to do. Aside from, of course, most people shouldn't be doing their own mixing and mastering either, even if you think you're pretty good. Like if you don't have real experience in that, it's just worth the money to go get that stuff done properly. But outside of the music, right? Graphics for sure. I mean, that's the easy thing. I don't care who you are. You can find a graphic designer who can do a better job than you. I would start there. And then after that, let's see, there's so many different aspects to the music business. I have to think for a second about what would be the second thing I would do. I'll have to think about that.
So you felt like, though, that you had a pretty good concept of delegation early on. Because delegation is one thing. That's what you're doing more so now as the business has grown. initially it was more so farming certain things out. And when we say farm out, in other words, you're hiring somebody else to do. So people then, some will think, like you said, nobody can do it better than them. Others maybe don't feel like they could ever afford it. So they have no idea that, well, a graphic designer, Leah, has got to be super, super expensive, right? I mean, shouldn't I do it myself and save that money?
Yeah, I know. In a lot of cases, it's more expensive to do it yourself. Think of all the time that you're putting into it to not get it right and for it to not leave a good impression on somebody. It's much more affordable in so many ways. I mean, your time is worth something. To hire someone who knows what they're doing, can get it done 10 times faster than you, better than you, and a better end result, especially with graphics. You know, you have a split second to make an impression on someone. Someone's going through Spotify, you know, they type in an album name and they see 10 albums come up with the same name. Which one is going to jump out at them, right? Like, you have a split second for a tiny little thumbnail. So it better be good. I mean, you can go to places like Fiverr.com, freelancing sites, Upwork. There's so many different places. There's even sites like 99 Designs where you post a job and they all bid on it. And they actually all do a sample of the work. And you get to look at everybody's samples and pick the best one that you like. I mean, this internet age is crazy amazing. Like, that stuff did not exist even 10 years ago. So it doesn't have to be expensive, but I would say, even if it's a bit of a stretch for you, make it work. Like, we could do a whole other show on ways to make extra cash so you can afford to do the things that you need to do in your music business. We can definitely do a show on that because I have a lot of ideas. In fact, I wrote a guide called the Quick Cash Generation Guide. That's actually in our online musician program for this very reason, because people say, oh, I can't afford this, I can't afford that, I can't afford a graphic designer. Well, you can. The truth is that you're spending money on other stupid crap. You know, you are. Everybody has some room in their budget unless you live in a third world country. You know, you are spending money on Netflix and cigarettes and booze and eating out and makeup and shoes, and you do have a disposable budget. You can afford a graphic designer. You choose not to. You choose to prioritize something that is not actually going to move you forward. So don't talk to me that you don't have the money. You do. So
that's right.
Yeah. So that would be, contracting out. We'll call them contractors, right? You can call it farming out or whatever, but contracting is going to be the first step for you delegating, because these are going to be more one-off jobs, right? It's like, I need this thing for that specific purpose. You know, I'm doing a crowdfunding campaign. I need this one video edited. So yes, you can edit the videos yourself, but if you want it to look really professional, there's somebody on Fiverr who can do it way better than you, and it'll cost you $50 or whatever, depending how big the project is. So worth doing.
Yeah, I think the concept of time and money is a huge one. And as you've noted before, everybody has to understand, even though they're musicians and artists, when it comes to being the online musician, you have to see this as a business. You are in business. And so think like a business person would think. A business person, you know, opening up a little pizza place or a little floral store or something like that. They understand that they have to hire certain things out, right? They have to do these things because that's what businesses do. There is a cost of doing business. Now, we certainly understand that, you know, you could be strapped financially and all of that. Believe me, we get it. But what are you willing to do? In other words, how important is your dream? How important is this goal? Because if it is, you know, if you do want to do what you claim you want to do, you know, so bad, well, then it'll show up in how you spend your time. It'll show up in how you spend your money, right? And like you said, they're wasting a lot of money on other things. They're wasting a lot of time on other things. They could be listening to podcasts like this instead of binge watching on Netflix in order to learn principles and keys to raising extra money or what they should be looking for example, in design. I had this question today. Now, it just so happens that my degrees are in design and advertising. So I've been designing logos and packaging and things my whole adult life. So I could talk about that stuff. But Leah's right. What's available now with sites like Fiverr and 99 Designs would have put me out of business years ago because it's so cheap. And sure, you get what you pay for to some degree, but what we're talking about is just give yourself this professional look or professional sound, whatever the need may be. And it may cost you might get a little sticker shock when you realize that you do have to pay for these things, but you have to think of the value that you're getting. You exchange money to get something in return. You're getting something in return. You're getting a music career here, potentially.
Yeah.
So there's an element of risk in it, and you've got to invest in that. To think that you're going to do all this yourself is just being unrealistic. And so you end up setting yourself up for a lot of stress, a lack of sleep. It's not good. It's not a wise move in terms of creating a successful business. And what I get from you, Leah, is you want to get a hold of these people early on in the stage so that they don't have to learn everything the hard way, right?
Yeah. And I also want to speak to the other end of the pendulum, which is people who want to delegate everything and they only want to focus on the music. Well, now you're going back to a label model, where they do everything for you. You don't think about the marketing. You don't think about anything. You're just going to be the creator. And that is not also going to help you, when you start a business, like at the beginning of Savvy Musician Academy, when I first started out as a little ebook that turned into a video course. And, I was first sharing it with my friends and then it turned into, well, can we learn that? Can we learn that from you? And so it turned into this course. Well, I was doing everything. And then shortly after my husband joined me, the two of us were doing everything ourselves. We were the customer service. We were, the course provider, the teacher, the curator. We were the tech support. We were doing everything, absolutely everything ourselves. And you reach a ceiling very quickly when that happens. And so at that point you go, okay, we're growing to this certain point. Now it's time to bring on somebody else. So that's the model that is natural and proper. And everybody should go through that, where you start out and you're doing quite a bit. You're learning the ropes, right? You're like, okay, so this is how this works. This is how this works. Now I understand enough about, say, advertising, for example. Like I know everything about Facebook Ads Manager. I still study Facebook Ads Manager, but I know so much about it that now if I hire somebody to manage it for me, I know if they're doing a good job or not because I know my stuff. So, when you get to that point, that's how delegation should happen. You need to know enough about it that if somebody is doing a good job or not for you. But the other side of that is people who want to delegate everything. And so you need skin in the game. You need to be doing enough that when you're growing and when it's time to delegate and contract out certain jobs, you can be confident that they're actually doing a good job and you are getting a return on your investment there. So yeah, I just wanted to speak to that.
Well, then we've seen some examples of this, have we not, with certain students who sign up for an elite program, spend all this money, and they don't even show up. They have somebody else.
Yeah. And it's never successful when someone else is going through, we've had, like managers going through it with their artist, and the artist isn't the one logging in. It's the manager or the partner, or whatever, who's going through the program. And they definitely don't see the same results as when the students are the ones logging and doing the work. I've seen it, as long as they are extremely involved, and we caution, we speak to these people on the phone and we tell them, listen, this will not work. If you try to do this completely alone without the artist, it won't work. You cannot be their voice. There's email sequences that need to be written and it needs to come from the artist. You cannot do that for them. This needs to come from their heart, it needs to be their voice, and you can't do that. So that's why to this day, nobody writes our ad copy except for me, for even Savvy Musician Academy. We've had other people in the past try, and it never went over well because people can't replicate my voice. A good copywriter should be able to do that. That's not impossible, but unless you have mad skills, other people cannot replicate that for you. So what I don't recommend delegating is your marketing. And not at this point, not until you guys are making at least $10,000 a month regularly in your music business. You shouldn't delegate your marketing. So I don't want anybody else running your ads. Nobody else should be writing your emails. Nobody should be setting up your funnels. You need to know that stuff. You need to do that. So I want to just draw that line, in the sand so that people understand when I say delegate, I'm talking about the stuff that you don't need to be doing. You actually probably shouldn't be doing it. And I've already brought up the graphic design. That's one really big one. For other people, it could be website design. I mean, we teach that stuff. We teach it. But for people who don't have our teaching, most of your websites are horrible. They're terrible.
Mm-hmm.
We did a whole podcast episode on that, so you should go back and listen to it. We did a 5-part series on why your music isn't making money. We went really deep on that. That's another one where a lot of people should get extra help in either designing it or setting it up, because it's just leaving such a bad impression. So that's another thing.
Leah, how about this then? Let's expand it outside of the actual music business itself. What about delegating other areas of it, especially speaking from a mother and wife perspective, when it's like, okay, it's not just the music business I'm dealing with, it's kids and yard and all this sorts of stuff. What about delegating there?
Yeah, actually, and that's another fantastic area that can just lighten your load exponentially, because as you're learning the music business and you're diving into all the ins and outs and, Facebook ads and pixels and funnels and emails and all of these really important things, naturally, your focus is not going to be on what should we have for dinner tonight. It's very difficult to have enough creative juice at the end of the day to open the fridge and go, what should I make? So I can tell you, a lot of people ask me about my time management and how I do it all. And the truth is that I don't do it all. That's my secret. The secret to doing it all is to don't do it all.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, for one thing, I am worth more per hour than cleaning my house, than what I would pay somebody else to clean my house. My hourly worth is worth more than what it would cost for me to clean the toilets. So for that reason, and it has nothing to do with the fact that, I kind of enjoy cleaning. I like a clean house, but that's not where my best time is spent. So I hire out once a week, deep clean. And the rest we do ourselves. My kids have chores and we do stuff around, we tidy up. But the deep cleaning stuff, I don't do. So we hire that out. It's worth it for me to do that. There's other things you can do too, like meals, or the service that we just got. We're trying it out right now called Daily Harvest. And they're basically just fruits and vegetables in a cup that go in the freezer, and you just dump it in a blender and you have a smoothie. So the kids, we have that, they can have that anytime they want, and it's in the freezer. It's in this little cup. It's called Daily Harvest or whatever. So that's great. So things like that makes your life simple. There is a real decision fatigue. That's real. That's a real phenomenon that a lot of us are dealing with. Simplifying your wardrobe. Like, I basically wear the same thing every single day. I don't sit there and wonder, what am I going to wear unless I have to go out somewhere. I'm always in workout clothes so that if I have energy, I can go work out right now. So it's like yoga pants, t-shirt, that's it. I'm not thinking about it. Maybe I'm not thinking of other things too, but meals, household stuff, yard work, like those are things worth delegating and hiring out so that you can focus on your music business.
Yeah, that's the key. Yeah, the key is to protect your focus. You've got to protect your focus. People fail because of broken focus. And these things, it's not just distractions so much, but it's feeling like, you have to do all of these things yourself. And for a lot of you, and this one may be tough for you, and it may fall a little bit more on the side of females because they find themselves often in the, wife and mother position. But sometimes we can be really good at training people not to do things around us who live with us, training people not to govern themselves, not to take care of things easily themselves. And so they end up calling on mom and dad or whoever all the time for everything. And so there may be some habits that some of you may need to break. You may need to start training that 14-year-old who's fully capable of throwing something in the oven or, like you said, tidying up. They've got their chores or whatever. They may balk at it. They may not like the change. What's up with the new version of mom? Well, mom's got a new mission in life. Dad's got a new mission in life. Yeah, exactly. So we're changing things around here, and don't be afraid to change anything. You're not breaking any laws. You haven't committed a sin. You're not suddenly a bad person now. No, what you're saying is, I've got gifts, talents, and abilities, and I need to fulfill this calling in life. I now have the opportunity more than I ever had in my life, because of where things are in the music industry and what Leah's teaching is now so readily available, these powerful tools. I can now fulfill this dream I have always had. I don't want to forsake my family. I'm not going to leave my kids. You guys are not going to starve, but it's time for you to start taking care of more things so that I can be more devoted and not worry about it and not feel bad about it.
That's right.
That's going to be tough for some people to get past, but
this is actually a really important concept, and it's something we're implementing it personally in our family with our kids, but also with our staff, is giving people more responsibility and decision-making responsibility and letting them know if you make a mistake, you're not going to lose your job over it, because we're giving you more decision-making power, and you're going to make mistakes. We all do, and you will not lose your job. So same with my kids, like actually literally yesterday, my oldest son, his name is Ryder, and we said, hey, I need you to cook those burgers. And it's so funny because we don't normally have him make dinner. And I don't know why we haven't, because he's Mr. Chef boy, like making donuts. He's really into baking. He's making donuts and pies and this. I'm like, why haven't we been getting him to make dinner too? Like, he's totally capable of doing this. So yeah, he fried them up and got all the burgers ready for everybody. And we all had a great dinner, and like, he can do a salad. Like, this is easy. So giving more responsibility to your family members and people around you, and allowing them to be like, hey, if you mess this up, nobody's going to die. You'll be okay. And just giving them that, permission to breathe. So,
right.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah. You have to depersonalize this, because I think what happens is it's like back in the 50s when Betty Crocker first came out with their instant cake mix. It did not sell well at all. Of course, everybody uses this stuff now, Duncan Hines, whatever, they just throw it in and make their chocolate cake. It did not sell well at all, because keep in mind, this is the first time anything like TV dinners, that's the first time anything like this had ever come about. Women prided themselves at that time of making things by hand. So to have an instant mix, it would not sell at all. So Duncan Hines could not sell their instant cake mix, which was, again, is common today. So they figured out one simple little change, and it changed everything. They added on the back in the directions, even though there was a pack of the powder and all this stuff, they just said, add 1 egg. And that one step of adding 1 egg was all it took for women to start buying, because they felt like now they were participating. There's a guilt issue.
You could take some of the credit.
Yeah, there's a guilt issue that comes with this. And don't make this personal. This is not personal. This is practical. Just because you ask your kids to do this, or ask your husband or your wife or whatever to do something, doesn't mean, right, you don't love them, or you're doing something bad, or whatever, or that you're less than, or that you're not forsaking your role as a parent or spouse or what have you. No, it doesn't mean that at all. We're just coming up with a brand new way to fulfill everybody's thing. And if your family loves you and you don't have a bunch of spoiled brats, then they should be interested in helping mom and dad achieve their dream.
And a lot of people know that we homeschool our kids, and we have the entire time. They've never stepped foot in a school. And since we've been running Savvy Musician Academy, for me to do what I do at SMA and in my music career, I have help with the kids. I have, a nanny that comes in every day and helps me for a certain amount of time per day with them. And that's how I'm able to pull it off, guys, because they have needs. They do school every day. Like, I'm not Superwoman. I don't wear some cape. The only way I can do this is by getting help. And at first it was really weird for me. I was such a dedicated, I still am a dedicated homeschool mom, but the way it looked had to change in order for me to do everything I do. And so I found a way to not compromise for them. They still get the education that I want for them. I'm still directing it. I still spend time every year figuring out what we're going to learn. And now when the kids are getting older, we're doing a lot more of that together. What they're going to focus on for the year, what are the courses they're going to do, when do we want it done by, is there any, trips we want to take that year. So I'm still extremely involved in all of it, but I've delegated out part of that role. I'm overseeing it and have somebody helping me do that, because I'm not the only person who can do that. So, you find ways of compromising without compromising, if that makes any sense.
Right. Sure. Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. Again, this is just wisdom. ladies and gentlemen. And I can almost hear Leah, that for those people said, oh, yeah, she's hiring a nanny. Okay, nice for you, Leah. You've got the money there to hire a nanny and have somebody come in and clean your house. Well, that's not where I am right now. Well, we understand that. We understand that's not where you are right now. But these are the principles. It's all about the principles. Leah wasn't where she is right now. I know. I talked to her back when they were struggling.
And when I first hired my nanny, I couldn't afford them, by the way. The first time I had basically a babysitter come in for a couple hours a day so that I could go and focus on building SMA, I couldn't afford them. I had to figure out a way to make it work. It was a sacrifice so that I could pull any of this off. You find ways. It was called bootstrapping. That's what it's called. And you find out what's the most important thing. So I didn't have like someone clean my house and nannying and, delivering food services or anything like that at first. That did not all happen at first. I picked what's the one thing, if I could get help with, what's the one thing that would free up my time and my head and give me the ability to move the ball forward where we want it to go. That was the one thing. So I chose out of all the things, out of cleaning the house or all the different things I could hire out, what's the one thing that will really move the needle for me? And it would be childcare, getting a little help with that, a couple hours a day so that I can focus uninterrupted and get the job done. And then guess what? That made me money. Me doing that. So you just have to prioritize. What's the one thing that you can do? What's the one thing you can hire out that will move the ball forward for you? And then that's how you prioritize it.
Right. So you are making the adjustments necessary, but you're not compromising your values by doing this. You're not breaking any law by doing this. And as you said, this requires sacrifice. And I define sacrifice as tossing something of value for something of even greater value. And until you get in your own head the true value of what your future would look like if your dream was fulfilled, if your music career was fulfilled, how valuable is that to you? And then compare that to whether or not you're making all of your kids food or cleaning your house or whatever the thing, even again going back to the stuff you would do inside the business and where delegation and contracting out effects there. You have to always value these things. You're the only one who can. And so understand the true value and worth of something and don't put more value in something that that could be easily handled by something else. So that's the point. Leah, anything else you want to say about delegating?
I don't know. I think that about wraps it up, actually. I think you have to know where you're at in your music career on what do you absolutely need to learn first. Like we talked about marketing, that whole online digital marketing thing. I would not contract that stuff out. I would contract out other things that will free you up to learn that stuff. That's the priority I want to leave you guys with.
Awesome. Well, listen, guys, do what you can for your business today. And the most important thing is to start thinking of it like a business. All of this stuff, the principles that Leah's sharing, is all based on a basic mindset that just says, I am now in business. Yes, you are a musician. Yes, you are an artist. Yes, you are super creative. And all this ad manager and this email and marketing stuff is going to take a single thing away from that. If anything, it's going to help you do more music, more creativity than you ever thought possible. That's the power of the information that's being shared at the Savvy Musician Academy. Leah, what would you like our listener to do today?
Yeah, today I just want you guys to either join the Facebook group if you're not in there, and of course, leave us a review if you're finding this podcast helpful to you at all.
Wonderful. Once again, such a pleasure to be with each and every one of you. Thank you for joining us on the Savvy Musician Show. Leah, as always, it's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure as well. See you guys next time.
This episode was sponsored by the Superfan System Elite program here at Savvy Musician Academy. If you are looking to scale your existing music business and you're looking to get into advanced digital marketing, such as email marketing, funnels, e-commerce, Facebook ads, and more, and you're looking to build a real profitable online music business, book a call with our team at www.callsma.com. superfansysystemeLite.com. We would love to speak with you for about 30 minutes and see how we can help you. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more episodes, and we'll see you next time.